call the meeting to order. We'll start with roll call.
Okay, very good. Chair West is absent. Vice Chair Foster.
Here.
Jason Burge.
Here.
Andy Jensen is absent. Ralph Lohman.
Here.
Rich Miller.
Here.
Bob Silverthorpe is absent. Megan Thornton here. And Lori Zwingli.
Here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll approve the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look through them? Any changes? Anybody want to start to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
To approve.
A second.
Thank you. All in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Aye. Processes.
They're approved. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll move to board member announcements. This is just the time where we go around and anything you want to talk about or things that you have noticed in the community, it's a good chance to bring that up. Announcements about upcoming events. But we'll start this way, if that's okay. If you have nothing, that's okay too, but.
Okay, upcoming events, Sherwood Wine Festival, I'm on their committee, so I'm helping them, is Friday, June 29th and Saturday, June 30th. We're having an artisans fair this year, and food trucks and all the wine and like symposiums doing coffee cocktails will all be inside the Sherwood Center for the Arts this year. Air conditioning, restrooms nearby, fabulous, and then you can be outside. Friday night, Deb has Hit Machine coming, so there's lots of music all day, both days. And Chief, you'll be proud of us for getting Les Schwab to not only donate dollars, but they volunteered to donate as much water as possible.
Good.
And order more if needed, so other than that,
I really have nothing at this point.
Okay.
Oh, I do. So the Sherwood Police Foundation's second annual fundraiser, Boots and Bling, will be this Saturday at the Arts Center. Doors open at 5:30, but it starts at 6. We have a huge number of donated items that are going to be up for auction, both the silent auction and live auction. We've got some really good things that we want to benefit. The police, it all goes toward the police department, and we have 3 different things that we are targeting this year. There's the respite care for officers, there is the chaplaincy program, and there is the Comfort K9 program. We have 15 tickets left, maybe 14. So if you are interested in coming, please purchase your tickets now and come on out and join us, because it's for a great cause.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How is it different than the stakeout?
Well, it's the same thing. You
It's a
just-
fundraiser
Yes.
for,
Right.
it's just a different kind of fundraiser.
It's actually, we started calling it Boots and Bling last year, and the feedback that we got was that everybody liked the theme, so let's keep the theme. So we're calling it Boots and Bling Stakeout.
Okay, okay, they're one and the same,
Yeah.
is what you're saying. Okay,
Yes.
got it. Okay, good.
So I have more of an I wonder for the chief and for the department. Really, everybody's on the thoughts of if there's any joint thought or approach with the news and the media around. There's a lot of negative publicity that's out around police officer interactions, and as a former police officer, I have very mixed feelings that I know that there's always 2 sides of the story. But what always concerns me is the public reaction to an increase of media coverage around incidences, and so how does that affect our community? And is there, and this is really a question I don't have an answer for, like, is there a need for some type of more of an approach or something that we can do to help overcoming any potential negative stereotype? Oftentimes I feel like that when you're in the position as an officer, there's very limited that you can say, but as community, what it's like to be in situations, or something that would help educate our community more, so that they wouldn't feel, so that they feel safe and secure with, with the police department in our community if they had any questions. Does that make sense?
I think so. So I think you could probably always do more. It just comes down to a matter of time. There's probably a lot of communication and a lot more use of social media and release of information that we would like to do that just frankly, we just don't have the staff time to do it, because the people that are doing that, it really comes down to 4 people, myself, Angie, and 2 captains. And both of us just are balancing, so many things time-wise that we kind of do it out of necessity and when we have the availability. That's just our reality right now. That being said, my perception on your wondering is that as you drill down from the national perspective and you start to drill down, all the way down to the local perspective, I think the perception improves dramatically as you go down. So let me go from the reverse. It's been my experience in this community that there's tremendous support and understanding for the job that we do and the way we do it. That's certainly not to say that there may be some out there that don't know, but I either hear nothing or I hear very positive feedback. And so I can give you specific examples. When kind of that sentiment was at its worst a couple years ago, whenever, when there was a lot of rioting going on in the kind of the immediate post-Ferguson time period, people went out of their way to let us know that they thought we did an amazing job, that they had our back, that they supported us. And so that I think revealed to me a pretty good understanding by a lot of people. And again, they certainly don't speak for everybody, but a pretty good understanding of a lot of people that what they see from the national news media, because and I'm not saying that it's all about the media, but the reality is that's the only place people are going to see it unless they happen to talk to people, family or friends in other parts of the country. But what they see from the national news media, they recognize is not representative of policing in their local community. If you go beyond that, the first layer where I think we have some difficulties at the state level in our legislature, quite frankly. And I think a lot of them are more swayed or give more credence to the national perspective than most folks that live in communities throughout Oregon. So, and then of course you go beyond that, and then you get to that national perspective, be it the media or be it national voices, right? Folks that have the platform at that level. And so they may have a clear perspective. But I think in general, locally, I think people get it. So I think that's my best response to that. Certainly, we've not, that I'm aware of, received feedback that associates the policing that we do on a daily basis with some of the things that they see on television or reading the papers or whatever. So
it's not an issue that you're...
So, well, I wouldn't say that it's completely not an issue. I just think it's not something that causes me concern.
Mm-hmm.
But then I go back to the beginning of my response, which is that's not to say that we can't do better to talk about the things we do, but we go out of our way to do so many things and have so many opportunities to interact with people so that to help them understand that. And the way we police, we do very intentionally and focus on relationships and community. And I think when there's relationships there's better understanding, there's better trust, there's better there's just a better perception. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of the things that you see occur across the country don't happen on this side of the country as much. And then again, as you drill down, I think smaller community policing in Oregon specifically is far better than a lot of the policing that you're gonna see in other parts of the country. That's my personal opinion, but that's what I believe. So, I hope that answers your.
Yeah, so
or at
that
least
it's not a
gives some feedback
concern.
that you're wondering about, yeah.
And I would tie it into what I just mentioned last week about, as a potential opportunity for, the board to help with that communication out to the public. But being kind of like a step ahead. It's like, if that's, there's a lot of things that we could, ways that we could communicate that would not involve, as the community member speaking, that would not involve necessarily having to be the official thing from the chief or food for thought. And being involved.
I think the onus lies on us as community members to get to know the police so that we have that good rapport. I mean, I want, the kids to feel comfortable coming up and saying, "Hey, Chief, well, nice to see you," and we also have the onus as the board members to facilitate that communication. So it's not just a matter of, well, what's our official approach to it? It's, I think, a matter of how do you live each and every day of your life? What do you support? What do you not support? What do you lift up and are positive about? For example, if you see, Facebook is a classic example where you can get, you can post one sentence, your personal opinion, XYZ, and get a thread of 50 comments within an hour, and it can go from here to New Jersey. I mean, it's just insane how that happens. And when that happens locally about our police, I think, if we happen to see it, to either, like I saw a community member this week saw some post, and her response was she tagged Ty Hanlon in it so that the police would get looped into that thread. I think just doing that small step showed an act of support, or was an act of support for the police. And it also gives the police department an opportunity to step in and, whether it's a fact or a opinion, it doesn't matter, they can be involved. And I think the more, just like any relationship, the more both sides are working on it together, the better it will be. And let's face it, we have less than 20,000 people that live here. We are not a Chicago or a New York or an Atlanta where there are millions in small spaces, and that helps a lot with the crime we see, the crime we don't see, and the community perspective of the police department. In my opinion. I'm learning I need to say that now.
Okay. Also, kind of related, and in the theme of community policing, I wanted to tell you that we went to a elementary school carnival this last weekend, and Officer Kelly was there, as the kids refer to him by his first name, I believe, right? And that's what they told me. He was not in uniform because he was there as dad. And they saw him, though, from across the room, and they were like, "Mom, there's Officer Kelly." So I think that's cool, because also, especially not being in, in everyday clothes, not that he doesn't stand out in a crowd, because he does, but from height, he's very tall. But I thought that was cool, that, that he has made a presence. I have 3 middle schoolers, but that he's made a presence in the schools, but especially in the middle schools, because really his assignment is mostly the high school, that they would recognize him around town.
So if I can just add to that, I certainly don't know everything, that all of our officers are engaged in. And so that's really good feedback, and that is, to me, very demonstrative of a successful policing program, right? So the fact that those kids recognize him, they've probably, their first experience or exposure to him was in uniform.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they recognize him out of uniform means that they don't associate him to the uniform, right? They have come to know him as an individual, which as a school resource officer is really one of that whole program, really one of the basic tenets and goals of that program is to destigmatize the uniform and to present that officer as a human being that is there to help you and, you know, all that stuff. And so the fact that these youngsters know him as Officer Kelly when he's there in a pair of jeans or t-shirt or whatever he's wearing, tells me that that in fact is happening, which that's a huge success. We're meeting that goal and we're making an impact. And yeah, when we get to the point where we have more of them, that certainly is only going to improve and those relationships will even be stronger with more officers. And because he just gave a report to the city council, just an update on the program, and I think he's at, like, don't quote me, although it'll be in the notes, but I could be proven wrong is what I should say for the notes. But 85% of his time is at the high school is what stands out. Maybe it was 75, but anyway, the vast majority of his time is at the high school. He does try to make visits, and obviously he's making those visits, but he certainly doesn't spend the time at the feeder schools to really engage in much programming. It's just to pop in and say hi, or to go when he's called to deal with a particular situation or something. So anyway, that's a really good story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Because that's like I said, that's very demonstrative of the success that we're having with that.
I feel like their feedback is that they met him at the beginning of the year, probably in uniform, but I don't really know. It was an introduction. He's popped by before one time when they were on the playground and handed out stickers. That was a hit. Again, middle schoolers, but it's still cool to receive stickers from when you're in middle school. And then I believe he was there also in their health class, teaching drug units on drug prevention. And so, yeah, they have talked about that each and every time he's been there. And they don't talk about everything at school, so it's definitely making an impact.
I'd like to follow up on that a little bit. I went to the presentation. I came in a little late, but I saw a good part of it. And because most of you three of you on the board are newer, we learned when we reached out to the community when we first started, we learned that the subject of an SRO was important to a decent part of the community here. And in listening to the presentation, I learned a lot more about what he does that I had no idea he did. And so I would really like to see that presentation be brought here, if we could do that, so that the board could hear the presentation and see what he had to present, and then we would be better able to address that subject with the community too.
Yeah, how can we support?
June meeting. Sound good, Vice Chair?
Yeah, we have one other.
Yeah, but I think we'll have time.
Okay.
I have a question for you, just for clarification. I think you've mentioned this previously, but I can't remember. How many of your officers are actual residents of Sherwood?
Again, I'm going to have to estimate 15, 20%.
So
maybe
low.
25%.
Okay.
Well, low from what you would consider a statistically significant position, maybe, in terms of just numbers. But my sense is that that's a good amount, because it's not common.
Okay.
I still don't think that's very common, and if you go back 20 years, it was even less common.
Okay.
So I think the tide is turning a bit, but I think I would be willing to put our numbers up against any department. I think we have quite a few, especially for a community that just doesn't have the size. Say in Portland, where somebody can work for Portland and live in Portland and hide and not really, you know what I mean? It's different here. People are going to know you, and they're still wanting to live here. So, and as you, I'm sure, know, many officers from other jurisdictions live in town because of the the quality of life they have here, so.
I just think the story that she told about Officer Kelly is, wouldn't it be great if it was repeated many times over, having our own officers living in our community? It's just a wonderful wish list, but obviously not possible probably. But it is neat for young people especially, but even adults, but young people especially, to see officers out of uniform acting as regular people.
Right.
It's a good
Well,
example.
I'll tell you, one of the challenges I say you all feel, or every resident certainly feels, is that it's not cheap to live in Sherwood. And so that's a hurdle. I mean, it just is. If we hire, a brand new police officer, recruit police officer, he's gonna make decent money, but it may not be immediately available for them to purchase a starter home. We just don't have a lot of starter homes really in Sherwood, so.
I'm on the comprehensive planning committee and we're talking about that,
There
so
you go.
good to know.
Okay, we'll move to the next item. We're welcoming Ralph. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And so what we've done in the past, and I guess it put you a little bit on the spot this time since you're the one we're introducing, but if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and then also what intrigued you to want to be a part of this board.
Well, I read the minutes, so I knew what was coming. First, Chief, I want to thank you for a great interview and great questions, and it's my privilege to be here. Ralph Lohman, I am retired. I'm a retired pastor and trauma chaplain from Emmanuel Hospital. And so I've cut my teeth. I've also had 10 years of law enforcement as a younger man under my belt. Married, my wife and I, 37 years, so I think it's going to work out. We've got 2 grown boys. I've got a grown step-granddaughter and a 4th grade, almost 10-year-old little grandson I absolutely adore. Let's see, we live right around the corner, Cherry Orchard Place. We've been here for 14 years, and we love Sherwood. Why I'm here, you do things when you just feel prompted. And I was reading in the Sherwood Gazette or whatever it is that comes out, and there was a little notation that there was some vacancies on the police advisory board. And I looked at my wife and I said, I think that's something I might enjoy, and she agreed. So, I submitted my application, and you know the rest of that story. I also volunteer my time. I'm a Kiwanian. I'm president of the Tiger Kiwanis Club. I serve on the board of the Kiwanis Dornbecker Children's Cancer Program. I'm part of their Speakers Bureau, and involved in my church and staying active. Don't know how I had time to do this when I was working. Because I'm glad to be here. I just hope I can give back a bit. I've been fortunate. When I was growing up, it was common for my parents to say, if you're in trouble, you go to the police officer, don't go away from him, go to the police officer. And that would be my heart's desire. Great story.
Thank you for joining us, and we're excited to have you. Okay, no counselor tonight.
No counselor, they are in budget committee meeting.
Got it. Okay, so then we'll skip to you, sir.
Thank you. So I don't really have much to report. I think I did consolidate the notes from last month on the priorities, and you have those on the back of your agenda. There were some definite themes, and I kind of grouped them by number of times they were mentioned and by whom. And then I also added the goals so that you could see the goals you had established for 2018 when you presented your 2017 annual report to the City Council at the Board's and Commission's dinner. So, how those marry together, whether there's a different feeling now than when there, I don't know, but I just wanted you to have that information. As I think most of you saw in the email, and Megan alluded to on the comprehensive plan, so the city staff, Carrie Brennicky, is planning to attend the June meeting to talk about that, and to get some input on this board's thoughts about kind of how public safety fits into that. And I may not be representing this very well, but the comprehensive plan is really going to serve as kind of a roadmap, and it includes a lot. It's really going to be kind of a community visioning process. And so is my understanding, and I'm not a planner, but so we have in times past talked about this kind of thing and used terms such as public policy, policing. Those of you that are original members of the board, I'm sure will recognize that term. Had discussions about what types of levels of service and staffing. So I think that's the kind of information from more of a policy perspective that they would be looking to try to include in some part of that comprehensive plan. As Megan said, she's involved in that, so feel free
Please.
to jump in at any point if I'm misstating or you want to add something to that.
So the comprehensive planning committee is for 2040. What do we want Sherwood to look like in 2040? And there are, I don't know, 15, 16 different goals or parameters. I don't know Carrie's technical term, but literally the fact that a city has a comprehensive planning committee says there are, 15, 16, 17 specific terms. Of those, you decide which apply to your specific plan. So ours are, a lot of them, not all of them. But really, my understanding is that our plan will be focused more on land use planning. So really, how do we want Sherwood to grow? For example, I'm making up numbers. Say right now we're 5% industrial, 25% commercial, and the balance 70%, single-family dwelling. Do we like that? Do we want more industrial, less industrial? Do we want multifamily housing? Do we want to reduce the lot size of a home in Sherwood so that we can now have, more townhomes or more apartments? The way we get that feedback is not just the board committee saying, okay, here's our 20 people and we've decided what Sherwood's going to look like in 2040, but figuring out what events, what community groups we can go to and poll. So there'll be online surveys, there'll be kid involvement, like I guess in one city they did a coloring contest online for kids, for like going to cruise in and having people say, well, what do you want to see in 2040? Our meeting next week is to really flesh out those details. We brainstorm what events we think we can go to in the next year, what groups we should identify, churches, scouts, things like that, so that we get a good solid picture of what all of us that live here want it to look like when we're still here in 20 years.
Thank you. So the final thing I would say is with that information, I think the challenge for this board, and my advice would be, is to approach this with that in mind. How do we prepare for what that growth looks like while maintaining a desired level of service and police staffing, and what does that look like, and how does that keep pace with however that growth happens?
I'm happy to email out the information we have so far, so you can see the mission, the goals, if that's something you guys want.
One of the things that some of you have already discovered is that there's just a lot of folks out there that just aren't thinking about this. And so maybe that's where some of that communication comes in. But that is the unfortunate reality of a safe community. We continue to get accolades about how we compare with other communities and how safe we are. When your car is running really well, you're probably not thinking about a new car, right? And so with a safe community, there's not going to be a large awareness or a strong awareness of, hey, how many and when are new officers are we going to need to add? What other service, right? Because it's just not in your face. So that is going to be a challenge for this board to provide that feedback based on everything you've been told, based on the input that your staff is going to give you, which glad to do that. But that's really where I think you all fit in, and your role is to provide that feedback. And because what can happen, and what I don't think anybody would want to have happen, is that there's a segment of this community that's just, oh gosh, we just didn't think of that, right? That has happened already. I mean, I have been in the area long enough, maybe not involved in Sherwood, but been in the area long enough and talked to enough people that Sherwood got to the point where it was 85, 90% residential. And then suddenly folks realized, wow, that doesn't support anything. That is an unhealthy tax base, right? So when you start talking about ratio, and nobody likes to see a bunch of the retail and commercial, but the fact of the matter is, that type of development and a healthy mix of development, which is what planning is all about, is what provides a healthy tax base. So in like fashion, nobody wants to be in a position 10 years, 20 years from now and think, gosh, I remember when Sherwood was really safe. You could leave your door unlocked or your garage door open at night. Boy, we sure can't do that anymore. So we need to make sure that we're giving that thought to that, so that as the community continues to grow, this is what my message has been all along, as the community continues to grow, we remember that there's all the needs that need to take place, right? Nobody wants parks with dead grass. Well, we got to remember to account for that. Nobody wants high crime. Nobody wants to lose that quaint, safe feeling that we have, that we enjoy. So we need to account for that. And there's probably some that disagree, but Sherwood isn't Sherwood with respect to the safety in the field by accident. It doesn't happen because we have expensive homes and hardworking people. It doesn't just happen, right? It happens because this community has invested over the years in policing, and that has to keep happening to maintain this and to look ahead and say, okay, we're going to still be at this place when we're 25,000, 30,000, 35,000. You know, you had Julia come in and talk, and the potential build out at some point is 35,000+. Probably never hit 40, but when Sherwood West finishes up, you're talking about a community the size of Lake Oswego and pushing the size of Tigard. So to have a community that size, it still feels like it does now, that would be pretty cool. And I think it's possible, but I think it has to be done with a lot of planning and a lot of thought that goes into that. So
is the person that's going to, you said the next meeting is
Yes.
going to come and present, are they going to ask questions and expect us to answer on the spot?
I think there's going to be a lot of explaining about what the process is, and probably a request for some general information. I wouldn't expect that you would be put in a position to ask very detailed questions about those kind, but just more high-level types of things. So you should be prepared from that perspective. Those of you that are newer, I think it's probably understood that you just may not have as much of the board background, so that's fine. I mean, I'm not speaking on behalf, but several members and several that aren't here tonight have been engaged in this for quite a while. I'm sure we'll be able to speak, like Lori, Diana, Rich can, on what they have heard repeatedly from community members on the years they've served on the board. So
And that's kind of a good point. So in the past, when we worked on different projects, we head out into our community ourselves and just talk to our neighbors, our friends, or people we interact with, and ask them about what some of their concerns are. And we've done that more from like a current standpoint, what are your concerns right now? But maybe even from now until the next meeting, if we can speak to those same people who we're surrounded with and get some of their forward-thinking concerns, we probably could give some of that feedback to this committee when they come next month.
Well, and I could take to the board meeting next week that, hey, get them thinking, because it's a large crowd. What are you thinking in terms of safety and the police involvement in our community? Let's put that as part of our surveying questions for when we're out and about this summer too. So that when we come up and say, hey, what do you think of 70% industrial versus commercial? And what do you think about the police department and how we should change that or support differently? We could maybe as a police board come up with the questions we want on that survey. And it's my impression that it's a pretty open forum as far as, okay, we're just the conduits to the plan. So.
Thinking I like that idea. And if there's any way of getting the questions or the general topics that the person's going to ask to allow to either ask my community, or at least for me to be able to frame it, would be really helpful instead of it just being my personal thoughts, knee-jerk reaction.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Chief, would you mind looping me in on that email?
Sure.
Thanks.
Questions to be asked, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we were on staff report. So I guess that's it. Can't think of anything else.
I can't remember, did we close the loop on hiring updates from last meeting? Or are there any new announcements on that?
Yeah, well, probably not because we haven't hired anybody, so.
Okay,
But we're progressing. We have a strong group of finalists, and so Captain Carlson is just moving into the next step of getting some background started, and so it's moving right along.
and I can't recall, is it 2 positions?
We have 2 vacant positions, right?
Okay.
And these are backfill positions. They're not new positions. These are positions that we lost and we need to fill.
Okay, thank you. Citizen comment?
I was thinking, right now that
We can hear you better.
I volunteer up at Snyder Park, just to pick up trash. I just started doing it and kept doing it. And I'm wondering if it even gets reported. There's a fair amount of vandalism up there. And I'd pick it up and I'd report it and I'd take a picture of it and send it to Craig. This week it was the long team bench on the soccer field, completely torn apart. I don't know how they did it. They've done signs. The flags are left up on the field, they break them in half. Are you aware, does anybody report these things? And I suggested cameras, but we don't have a budget for that, but it's gotta be the same group of kids, I don't know if it's kids, I don't know what kids, but it is an issue. But since the park is not visible from the street, they have pretty full drain up there. Now, they haven't done graffiti, they did once on the water tank, but it's mostly breaking stuff. And it's the same kind of look to it, but it might be the same group. But just be aware of it. Sometimes they say, yeah, they do it all the time. They light the trash bins on fire, and just take them over and take them and, spread it around. So I don't think it's hardcore criminals, but it's. And then Steve Roach was telling me that they tore down a lot of the walkway that goes through the Stella Wilson, back in there where the ducks are, They just threw the buildings off and threw them way out in the water. So, just keep an eye on that and just be aware of it. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know if the department gets notified, but I sure see a lot of it. I was up there today and they just kind of pick it up. And say, yeah, they do it all the time. But to me, today there were broken Mike's Hard Ale. They drank it and then they were glass bottles, not cans, and they broke them on the lower parking lot. So I was picking that up. So there's a certain element that's violating our beautiful, beautiful park up there. But if you see or hear, just be aware that it's going on. I don't expect you to arrest anybody, but just be aware.
Snyder, you said, right?
Yes.
So I will forward that to patrol.
Thank you for your help in the cleanup. That's helpful.
It's my part. I'll tell you after the camera.
Okay, so with that, I think we're ready to adjourn, or I move to adjourn. Okay.
The next meeting is June 21st.
The
Yes.
third, is that the third?
It's
Yes.
always the
Yes.
third Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm planning on attending. It's my son's last day at preschool, and we're surprising him at school with a party, and then Grammy and Grandpa are coming up for dinner. So I really want to be here because of the CAC meeting, but I may.
Okay. You can let, usually it
Yeah.
runs through Angie, let us know if that changes.
But I really want to hear, especially if we can get Officer Kelly for the same meeting. That'd be great.
I will confirm that. Because I don't know his schedule. June 21st, school's out. He may be on a break then, so we'll let you know.
My daughter in kindergarten is also here next Monday.
Yes.
He came in, I guess, had lunch one day, and he's like, oh, the officer came in, what did he do? He ate lunch, but I was like, that's great, you know, that part of
Yeah.
that, just seeing him being there instead
Yeah.
of being something.
I think so, we got moved and seconded. Yeah, we're adjourned.
Are we good, Jack?
Okay, great.